luck. Less than a minute later, the third sign, everything always comes in threes, didn't it, occurred as his car rumbled over the railroad tracks. I lifted my feet and raised both arms to touch the car roof. For a split second, Willie did the same, as I'd known he would. You couldn't be too careful. I mean, nobody wanted to die young when you could have prevented it by merely lifting your feet while going over tracks. He stole a glance at me. His withered black face held both curiosity and compassion, just as it had in the old days when he'd done the occasional odd job around the house for my dad. "I'm sure Delaney was puttering around the garden, and the time just got away from her," he said. I bet. I hadn't believed him the first time he'd offered up that lame excuse. Delaney had left me stranded at the bus station. If Willie hadn't happened by and seen me sitting on the bench with my luggage, I might have lingered there another 2 hours or more, sending off increasingly agitated texts to my sister, who apparently wasn't carrying her cell phone. My silence must have made him uncomfortable. "And your daddy can't drive no more," he offered. "You'll find everything's changed. That's why I wrote you. Figured you'd want to know." His letter had been brief and to the point. "Your daddy is doing poorly. Might want to pay a visit while you can." I'd debated for days over whether to return. I didn't have many fond memories of a loving father, but duty pressed its relentless grasp on my conscience, overriding my logical objections. Besides, this homecoming might help me address the two ghosts of my past that refused to stay dead and buried, Mom and Ainsley Delfrid. "You did the right thing, Willie. Thanks. How'd you get my address?" "Your sister?" I squeezed the bloodstone clutched in my right palm. My thumb fit neatly into the indentation at the top of the tumbled rock, as if it had been custom-fitted for my touch. The lady at the Green Fairy metaphysical store had promised it warded off negative energy. I needed all the armor I could get. We passed by the old oak, whose canopy twisted sideways, reaching all the way to the other side of the road. Willie beeped his horn as we drove under the tree, so, as tradition mandated, I made a wish. Don't let it be as terrible as I fear. We'd be at the house in minutes. This called for a heftier charm. Trusting the old more than the new, I reached into my jean pockets, tucked in the bloodstone, and replaced it with the glass chip I always carried. When I was 9, the crows had brought me their first gift. This chip of cobalt blue glass that had glittered in the dust like a fairy bauble. Or maybe like a frozen sliver of ice from the sea. So blue it hurt my heart. That azure chip had stood out amid the ash and bone-colored landscape of home. A promise of a magical land where the muddy Alabama River flowed down to the Gulf of Mexico and transformed into a turquoise sea that lapped against sugar-white beaches. My fingers brushed against its smooth, cool surface, and calm flowed through me like a slow-moving stream. "What you got there?" Willie asked, glancing sideways as he maneuvered the car down the bumpy dirt road. I shrugged. "It's like a worry stone," I replied with elaborated casualness. "You ain't got nothing to worry about. I know your folks are—" He stumbled a heartbeat. "Dying to see you." I cringed. He blushed. Yeah, dying wasn't a good word choice, considering my past history. My nervousness returned. I held the chip in the hollow of my palm, wishing I were my 14-year-old self, who could trust that it was a magic talisman to keep me safe. But despite my compulsion to ward off bad luck, I didn't much believe in magic anymore. A twist around the bend, where white oaks towered and the Spanish moss waved in the wind like an old friend, and we were near. Excitement warred with my worry. This was home, after all. The only one I'd ever known. There. My heart thundered, and I leaned forward in the seat, taking it in all at once. It was as familiar to me as my own face, and had an eternal quality. Generations of the Henderson family had lived here.